Hi, good evening, and we are gradually coming to the end of Parent Summit Africa conversation. It has been an amazing experience so far. If you were here yesterday, if you were in the sessions at the beginning of today's experience, you would agree with me that it has been an amazing experience. So much to learn, so much to implement, so much to do, right? And sometimes when you get information like this, it looks like parenting is overwhelming. But before I move forward, please do let me know if you can hear me. If you can hear me clearly, if you can see me, do let me know, right? Do let me know. Do let me know if you can hear me, if you can see me clearly. All right, thank you. So this particular session is to help us harness everything that we have learned in the past, yesterday and today, and then to know how we can implement, to know where we are first of all, and to know how we can implement. If you are joining this broadcast, then one thing is clear: you want to do parenting right, you want to raise your child right. You have realized that you need support, you need knowledge, you need to upgrade your skills to be able to raise the kind of child that you want to raise, right? And if I'm to piggyback on everything that every speaker who has come here to share with us has said, there are a few things that are consistent. Number one is that you must have a clear value, right? You must have a clear value when it comes to, your parenting. You must be clear on what your values are, right? Number two is that there must be a decision, right? You must have decided and said, I don't want to do things the way they have always been done. I want to do things differently. Because for me, even when I started my journey of parenting, I saw how I was raised. I saw how people were also raising their own children. And I knew that that's not what I wanted for my own children. I wanted them to be better. I wanted them to do things better, right? So, and I made a decision and I said I wanted to do things differently. And that decision is what has led me to where I am today, right? So it starts with a decision, it starts with clarity, and then finally, there must be a plan to implement what you're learning and a plan to measure how you're doing. So if you get all of this knowledge and you don't have a plan to help you implement what you're doing, or a plan to measure, you know, how you're doing. So for instance, in a year, you should have a clear vision or clear goals or what you want to achieve as a parent with your children in a year. And at the end of the year, you should be able to look back and say, okay, this is where we were at the beginning of this year. And this is how far we have come at the end of this year. We have been able to achieve XYZ. I've been able to make progress with XYZ. My child has been able to make progress with XYZ, right? So no matter what you decide or what your grand idea or is about your parenting and about the kind of child that you want to raise, if you don't have a clear action plan for implementation, and if you don't have a metrics or something that can help you measure how well you're doing per time, then you might struggle. It might just be year in, year out. Oh, we want to raise better children, and then the year will go and you come back and say, oh, we want to raise better children, and the year will go back again. So that's why we're having this session, sorry. To even understand where are we on this journey of conscious parenting? Where are we? Because it's easy for you to look at other parents. For instance, I know that a lot of us who were at the previous session with Coach Ade Jones might be looking at him and saying, oh, his wife is such a lucky person. How do I get my husband to do this? How do I even do all of these things that you people are sharing? How do I manage to become a kind of parent that is not shouting? How do I manage to become a kind of parent that is not overwhelmed? You can think about all of those things and feel like, oh, this is not for me, I cannot do it. These people have superpowers, or these people have extra support. Me, my own realities are different, I cannot do it. But the truth of the matter is, we all can do it, and we all should do it for the sake of our children. We all should do it if we want to break generational cycle. We all should do it if we don't want to raise children who suffered the same thing as we did. I always say that it is foolishness to see something that didn't serve you. It is foolishness to see something that hurts you and allow your child to experience that same thing. So the first question, because this is going to be an interactive session, I'm not just going to speak at you. We are going to have a conversation, because this parenting thing, we must get it right though. And welcome to this session. If you are in this session, then you are well on your way to understanding where you are and to understanding how to get to where you want to be, right? So, the first question I'm going to ask you is, what is your vision for your parenting? So when it comes to your parenting, what is your vision? When you have finished doing parenting and you're looking back, let's say in your 60s, in your 70s, when your children are grown and are, they've left your house and you are now an empty nester, what do you want to see to know that you were successful in parenting? If you know that, please put it in the comments, right? If you know what you want to see, what is your desire? What will make you happy? What do you need to see in your life, in your child's life, to know that you are doing well with parenting? If you know what it is, please let me hear it in the comments, right? I need to hear it in the comments. That is the beginning, that is the foundation of everything. Because all this, we want to do better, we want to do, you need to know what you want, right? What is it? What is that one thing that you need to see in your child? Okay, let's even start from now, where you are with your child now. Let's even forget about 20 years time, 10 years time. What do you need to see in your child now to assure you that you are doing well in parenting, right? So what do you need to see? Is it that you want your child to know how to take care of themselves? You want them to be God-fearing, right? What do you need to see? You want them to be well behaved. What do you need to see in your child now to help you know that you are doing well in parenting? You want to write that down and you want to let me know in the comments. Remember, I said this is a conversation, right? And if you have been able to think about that, I'll ask you another question. This is not me speaking at you. This is us developing a plan, right, that would help you. So if you have been able to address that, I would love to ask you another question. So that thing that you desire to see, that your vision, that thing that you want to see in your child that will enable you know that you're doing well in parenting, what has stopped you from achieving it? What has stopped you from achieving it? Right? So for instance, I want my child, let me say for instance, I have seen that my child is a great orator, right? And I want to help them harness that skill or harness that talent, right? I most times as parents, we have these grand ideas in our head, but we never really come to implementing. And the truth of the matter is that it is what you do on a daily basis and how conscious and intentional effort that you put in ensuring that what you have in your head, the ideas that you have, the desires that you have, come to pass. Every parent is desirous of raising an amazing child, a wholesome child, a child that doesn't have trauma. We all have that desire. But what is stopping you from making that happen? What is stopping you from making that happen? I want to raise an amazing child. I want to raise a child who is not sexually abused. Yesterday we had a session on sex education. I want to raise a child who is not prone to sexual abuse. I want to raise a child who is smart. I want to raise a child who is body smart. I want to raise a child who is fulfilling purpose. I want to raise a child who is living, who is expressing their talents, right? What is stopping you from achieving that? Vivian is saying, network, I can't hear. Please, can you guys hear me? Let me be sure that it's from her own end and not from my end. Can you guys hear me? Can every other person hear me? Guys, use the chat box so I can see you. Can every other person hear me? If you can hear me, let me know in the chat box so I'm sure that I'm not speaking to myself. Okay. All right. So, yes. So, all right. Thank you, sis. Ayana Ten Jacko. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So the question is, what has stopped you? Because we all want to be amazing parents. We all have the good intention. We want to do amazing by our kids. But what has stopped you? Right? And I need you to be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself, because what is stopping you is different from what is stopping me. My desires are different from your desires, right? So these are questions that I'm asking to help us bring awareness to ourselves, right? And then the final question I'd ask you before I delve right into the conversation is, what do you have on ground now? Right? So for instance, you're saying, I want to raise an amazing child. What is it that you have on ground now to help you start that journey to raising an amazing child? What do you have on ground now? Because most times, people come to me and they're like, oh, I want to be a conscious parent. I want to start doing things intentionally. I want to stop shouting at my children. I want to stop hitting. And I ask them this question and I say, okay, you have come to me for support, but let's look at you. Let's look inwards. What do you have on ground right now? Assuming I'm not able to support you, what do you have on ground to help you start this journey to becoming the kind of parent that you want to become? Because we all have it inside of us. Number one thing you have is your intuition. Number two thing you have is that you are the one with your child in the same space. Number three thing you have is that you have your why. You are the one that know why you want to do this thing. For some people, is your why, you have the relationship with your children and all of that. So any help that is coming from outside should be extra and should be built upon what you already have on the inside, or what you already have on ground as support, and as skills, as resources that you already have to help you raise the kind of child that you want to raise. The last speaker mentioned something. She said that he said that he believes in raising family as a close-knit, consolidated family. That's a culture that is fast disappearing in our world, right? So he believes that the grandparents should be involved, the aunties and uncles should be close to the family. Now we're raising families where everybody is me, myself, and I, right? But for some people, what you have on ground that can help you even raise the wholesome child that you want to raise might be the support in terms of family, in terms of grandparents, in terms of uncles, in terms of aunties, in terms of family friends that are chipping in. I'm saying trusted people also who also have the right values as you, at the same values as you, right? So if everybody is chipping in, it can support your work, right? For some people, it might be a coach, it might be a training, it might be a school, right? Those things come together to help us achieve our goal. But where are we headed? There is a particular vision that we have in mind. This is the kind of child I want to raise. This is the kind of family that I want to build, right? There's a thought I want us to hold throughout this conversation, and that thought is that for you to be successful in parenting, one thing you must do is that you must know that it is about aligning your child to purpose. So success in parenting is not about the kind of schools that your child went to, the kind of clothes they are wearing, the number of degrees that they get at the end of the day, how many countries they have traveled to, how many vacations that you have given to them. Success in parenting is measured by how aligned your child is to their purpose, to the purpose for which God created them. And purpose is a simple thing. Purpose isn't one big thing that your child is trying to find. Purpose means that your child is being, doing, and having what God wants them to per time. That's what purpose is. So in all your journey of parenting, you are trying to understand who this child is, to understand what God has put inside of them, so that you can bring all of those things God has put inside of them, and so that they can fulfill and solve the problem that God has sent them to solve in the world, so that they can be a blessing to their world, so that they can bring out the solution that they have inside of them and use it to make the world a better place. That is what success in parenting is. It's not, my child has how many and how many degrees. If your child has that number of degrees outside of what God has planned for them, you haven't been successful. A lot of us have amazing degrees. I mean, I studied medical science, but I remember clearly telling my parents that I wanted to be a counselor when I finished secondary school and I was about to fill my JAMB form. I remember my father saying something like, I can never pay school fees for anything that is not medical sciences. I went to school for 6 years, but it was like, I don't remember those memories, because it was like I didn't go to school, because it wasn't what I am invested in. It wasn't something that is aligned to who I am. So look at me now, trying to find my way back to school to actually do the things that I love. So for those years, I was functioning outside of who God made me to be, outside of my purpose. A lot of us are here, we experience this same thing. A lot of us have spent our years going to school, doing different things, and struggling, coming out to realize that I don't feel fulfilled. This is not who I am. I'm not enjoying this thing. I actually did this thing just to please my parents. As parents, we are not supposed to repeat that for our children. We're supposed to look at the child in front of us. Look at what God has put in them. You will see it. Look at their interests. Look at the things they're passionate about. And then align them, nurture them, guide them, so that they can become all God has called them to become. That is when you can say, I'm successful. And for some people, we're looking at the material things that our children can get, and we're like, that's why most of us were pushed into the medical science. Oh, when you finish, because now I'm trying to say this because yes, our parents might have gone about it the wrong way, but they had good intentions, right? So they wanted us to come out from school and then have a job. So it was said, for instance, my dad would say, if you study counseling, what are you going to do? So you now end up in one secondary school and say you're a guidance and counselor. So for them, they didn't see the bigger picture, and they didn't understand that if you're functioning in where God has called you to be, that the opportunities are amazing. There is no telling who you can become. There is no telling what God can inspire you to do. And definitely, it is in God's purpose that your provision and your success is. It is in God's vision and provision that is in God's vision for you that your provision is, right? So yeah, I studied medical science, but I haven't made as much money from medical science as I have from counseling and helping people, which is my passion. So we must have it in our head here that success is aligning our children to purpose. Someone should help me. You guys help me put that in the chat box. What is success in parenting? Success in parenting is about aligning our children to their purpose. Success in parenting is about helping our children to be, to do, and to have what God has called them to by time, or to become who God has created them to become. Are we together? Are we together? I don't want this to be a one-sided conversation. I need to know that you are with me, right? I need to know that you are with me. I need to know that you are with me. Yeah, thank you, Peggy. All right. So to achieve this, how do we even achieve this, right? How do we know that we are on the right track when it comes to, helping our children, being the parents who will raise children who fulfill purpose? How do we know we are on the right track? How do we know where we are, and how do we ensure that we are heading where we want to be, right? And that is what this conversation about. For you to be able to help your children to fulfill purpose, you need two things. Beyond understanding that you have to have a relationship with God, because of course it's God that keeps on opening your eyes to who the child in front of you is. You need two things, right? Number one is knowledge, and number two is influence. These two things are important in helping your child fulfill purpose. Number one is knowledge, number two is influence. And knowledge means that you need to know the child in front of you. You need to know the child in front of you, right? That's simply what knowledge is about. You need to know the child in front of you. You need to know who they are. You need to know their temperament. You need to know how to speak with them. You need to know how to show up for them. You need to know how to help them. You need to know what their struggles are, right? And number two is influence. Influence means that you have the power and the capacity to get your child to do what they're supposed to do. And you can do this easily without force. Because on the journey of leading your child to purpose, there will be a lot of times when your child will want to do things that are contrary to where God is leading them to. And God has placed you in their life as their guide with a superior intelligence to see what they cannot see and to be able to tell them, no, that is not good for you. Go this way, stop that, don't do that. But you need to be able to do this in a way that doesn't break your child, in a way that doesn't put a rift on the relationship that you have with your child. You need to be able to influence your child. You need to be able to be the primary voice in your child's head when they are in a crossroad, when they're about to make critical decisions. That is what influence is, right? Influence is not using force on your child. Influence is not manipulating your child. Influence is not bribing your child to do something. Influence is being able, wielding the power to help your child do something without force, easily, without them even realizing that you are changing their mind. That is when you say somebody has a high influence on somebody, that means whatever this person say is law to this person. Like, they trust you so much that whatever comes out of your mouth is like law to them. Whatever comes out of your mouth is like a trusted thing for them. You have some people like that in your life, some people that you look up to so much that whatever they say, in fact, some people is to an extreme that even sometimes when they are wrong, just because you revere that person, and the person doesn't have to force you or manipulate you to believe in them so much. That is what, if you that's what I called an influencer parent, right? Because that is the kind of power that you need. For instance, a Bible illustration of this would be when Jesus did his first miracle, when he changed water into wine. Mary did not force him. Mary just came to tell him and said, oh boy, these people's wine has finished too, right? And for Mary, most of us feel that that is Jesus's first miracle. That was his first public miracle. Jesus must have been doing miracles in his house, right? Maybe Mary will be cooking, salt to finish, she will just do boom, boom, boom. For Mary to boldly come and tell him, do something, these people's wine has finished. He has been doing miracles in his house, right? And when Mary came to him, said, woman, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to do this. Mary did not shout. Mary just told the servants, please, you push, you go, he will give you instructions. And she didn't need to do any other thing. And Jesus, regardless of the fact that he wasn't ready, still did what his mother told him to do. That is influence. That you can say something without overflogging it, and you move on, and you know that my child will do it. That is the level of influence that you require to help your child, to lead your child to purpose, because we are in a world where there are a lot of voices, where there are a lot of influences. You must stamp your feet. You must make your ground. You must mark your territory. You must be the primary voice in your child's head if you want to do parenting right, if you want to at the end of the day to look back and say, yes, I have done what I'm supposed to do, and between God and man, I have done a good job, right? So if we want to know how well we're doing right, we need to measure our level of influence and our level of knowledge when it comes to our children, right? How well do you know your child? How easily do you get them to do what they ought to do? How well do you know your child? How easily do you get them to do what they ought to do, right? And based on this, based on this criteria, based on these metrics, if we were to, categorize parents, right? Different types of parents with different parenting styles. If we were to categorize all of us, into different groups, there are 4 types of parents. And I want you to pay attention to what I'm going to say, because if you're able to get this, then you will know exactly where you are when it comes to your level of knowledge about your child and your level of influence. And then you can now start navigating to becoming the kind of parent who has maximum influence on their children, right? For me to be able to do that effectively, right, I'll flip my screen, I'll flip my chat a box, I would show us a whiteboard where I'll use to categorize, this influence and knowledge thing. If you can see my whiteboard, please let me know. If you can see my whiteboard, please let me know before I move forward. If you can see my whiteboard, please let me know before I move forward. Okay, Peggy says you can see it. Okay, so I said that if we want to categorize parents, right, there are different types of parents. We are measuring how able you are as a parent to lead your child to purpose. And we said it is about knowledge and about influence, right? So let's say this place is influence, right? So we have high influence. This is high influence. These are the parents who have high influence on their children. And these are the parents who have low influence on their children. So you either have high influence or low influence when it comes to influence, right? You either have high influence on your child or you have low influence on your child, right? And when it comes to knowing your child, it's either that you do not know your child, or that you know your child. So it's either that you do not know your child or that you know your child, right? So a parent who knows their child is the parent that you can categorically say, this is my child's temperament. This is how my child loves to be, likes to be loved, right? This is my child's learning style. This is the best way to discipline my child. This is the best way to communicate to my child. This is how my child loves to receive information. So you have to know your child to that extent, right? If you do not know your child, that means you don't have this information about who your child is. And a parent who has high influence on their child is that parent that the child trusts. They can trust you with information. They can trust you with their secrets. They can come to you and they believe your counsel. And your counsel is not just emotional counsel. You're not manipulating them, right? You're giving them facts and figures, and they believe you, they trust you. You are the primary voice in their head, right? So now we have these parents. It's either you know your child or you don't know your child. And it's either you have high influence or you have low influence. And based on this, we have 4 categories of parents. So we have the fuzzy parents. Fuzzy, F-U-Z-Z-Y. And these are the parents who they do not know their child and they have low influence on their children. So we have the fuzzy parents. The fuzzy parent doesn't know their child. They don't know. They don't even have a clear vision of what is parenting, the kind of child that they want to raise. And they're the ones that are easily overwhelmed. Oh, I don't understand this child. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. This child is driving me crazy. I don't even know if I'm doing the right thing, right? That's a fuzzy parent. This parent is confused, they are struggling, and this is no judgment, right? This is no judgment. A lot of us dabbled into parenting. We just, got married and we felt that the next best thing to do is to give birth. I was like that. I gave birth immediately. I became a parent. I started learning how to become a parent inside of the parenting. I didn't have the opportunity to have this kind of conversations before I became a parent. I learned on the job, right? So a lot of us are here. We don't know. There's no vision. There's no goal. There's no direction. We don't even know. We don't know where to start. We don't know where we're going, right? These are the fuzzy parents. Then you have the dreaded parents. This is the normal African parents. You have the dreaded parents. These are the parents who have high influence, but they don't have any relationship. They don't know their children, right? So the dreaded parent is the regular African parent who is saying, I beg, I beg, I beg, I don't have time. What do you mean? I should come and be learning how to talk to a child. I should come and be learning how to play with a child. Why should I explain myself to my child? I beg. So, but they have high influence because they are using force and coercion to actually get their children to do things. They're using force and coercion. They're the people that beat, slap, so they can actually get their children to do things. But the fear or the downside of this is that you're going to raise a child who is filled with anger and strife, who doesn't have any relationship with you, and a child who is waiting, counting their days to leave your house. And the moment they leave your house, you don't have any hold on them again. And if that happens, how are you able to lead them to purpose? How are you able to guide them and nurture them and help them become who God has called them to become? So a lot of people are here because they say things and their children are obeying easily. They think it's because my parenting style is working. Oh, I have high influence. I know they try rubbish. Once I say something, why won't my child obey? Right? But with high influence and relationship missing, there is a dysfunction. Your child is dreading you. Not really that they respect you. Not really that you have real influence on them. What you have is a seeming influence, an influence that will disappear as soon as your child leaves your home. Then you have another category. These are the liberal parents, right? These are the permissive ones. These are the ones who have started their journey of conscious parenting. They love the idea of, I don't want to do things the way my parents did it. I want to be a better parent to my children. I want to be my children's friend, But they know their children, but they don't have influence. They have not been able to strike a balance. So they are their children's friend, but they are very permissive. They allow their children to do anything anyhow. They are overwhelmed. They don't know how to control their children. Their children become wild because they don't have the right boundaries. They don't know how to discipline. They don't have the skills to discipline in a conscious way. So you have them, they are the liberal parents. And the problem with this, as it relates to your child fulfilling purpose, is that you're going to raise a child who isn't disciplined. You're going to raise a child who doesn't understand boundaries, right? And at the end of the day, if your child is not disciplined, they cannot become all that God has called them to become. Then you have the final category of parents, who I like to call the power parents. And this is the goal for every one of us who wants to raise children who will fulfill purpose. You want to be a power parent. And what it means to be a power parent is that you know your child, you have a relationship with your child, and you also have influence on your child. You are not afraid to have a relationship with your child. A lot of parents feel that when they have relationship with their child, that they lose their authority on the child. But if you're a power parent, you understand that your relationship with your child doesn't reduce your influence on them. In fact, your relationship with your child fuels your ability to influence them because your child starts to trust you. You know them. You know how to show up for them. You know how to how to communicate with them. You know how to break rapport when they are exceeding their boundaries. So all of us are on a journey to becoming power parents. And some of us might just think, oh, I'm a power parent. I'm my child's friends, and I have high influence on them. But there is still more to all of that, right? So I hope that we got this. I'm flipping my camera now, right? I hope that we got all of that. So yes, we have, 4 categories of parents. And with this analogy, I'm hoping that you can, at least to, a large extent, try to say, okay, this is where I belong, this is where I belong, or this is where I am at this point in time. But the thing is, a power parent has a clear vision. A power parent, which is the goal for all of us, has a clear vision. They have clear vision of what they want to achieve. They are confident in their vision. They understand their why. Remember what I said in the previous session. When you understand your why, when you are convinced in your why, there is hardly any challenge that will throw you off balance. I can't tell you the number of backlash that I have received from friends, from online followers, from even family, about how I'm doing my parenting, because people don't understand. But because I know my why, you can say anything, and it doesn't, as in, I don't get angry because I know where you're coming from. I know that you don't understand, but I will do what I want to do. Right? So the power parents understand their why. They are confident in their decision, right? They're not concerned about public opinion. They know their children. They are highly connected with their children. They are connected. There's a deep connection that they share with their children. They are highly emotionally intelligent, right? They know how to control their emotions. They know how to control their emotions, because they understand that this journey that we're walking is a journey towards purpose. Oh, I'm raising children who will fulfill purpose. So I'm going to put my emotions in check so that I don't destroy the confidence that my children need to fulfill their purpose. Right? They're not afraid to be vulnerable. They're not afraid to be vulnerable. They are not afraid to give their children the stage. They're not afraid to allow their children to express themselves. So a power parent is that parent who knows their child, deeply connected with their child, shares a deep relationship with their child, and at the same time has a high influence, has standard boundaries, clear cut out boundaries, discipline, have principles that guide their families. They know what they are working on per time. They have measurable goals when it comes to their parenting, and they can measure. Remember when I said, when you get into a year, you should be able to, at the end of the year, look back and say, this is what we plan to work on this year. For instance, I plan to work with my son, my 4-year-old, to regulate his emotions, right? So at the end of the year, I should be able to look back and say, oh, this is how we started, and this is where we are. He can express himself. He knows what to do when he's angry. He knows how to bring himself to calm. He knows what to say to himself when he feels embarrassed or when he feels frustrated. You have your goals clearly cut out, and you can measure them, because measuring is important. If you're not able to measure, you'll not be able to know how far you have come and where next to head, right? So for some of us, you might think, oh, I know all of these things. I'm a power parent. I'm this. I know where I'm doing. I have my clear vision. But there is really no way of, knowing categorically until you probably have an assessment, right? And that's why with this, we have created an assessment to help you know where you fall, right? And if you're able to take the assessment, it will tell you where you are based on the series of questions that we have put together. It will be able to score you and tells you where you are. Am I a fuzzy parent? Am I a liberal parent? Am I a dreaded parent? Right? Am I a dreaded parent? And what do I need to do to actually become a power parent, right? So for instance, if you are a fuzzy parent, right, a parent who doesn't know their child and who has low influence on their child, the primary thing you need is clarity. You need to clarify your goals, you need to clarify your visions, and you need to have a direction on how you want to become a power parent. If you're a liberal parent, the primary thing you need is boundaries. Yes, you know your child, but how do I create boundaries? How do I build capacity to be able to influence my child? If you're a dreaded parent, yes, you understand what it means to influence your child, but you don't have a relationship with your child. How do I start showing up and connecting with my child so that I can know them, so that I can become a power parent? There is a journey for everyone. There's something that everyone, no matter the category that you fall into, needs to do to become the power parent, the kind of parent who will help their children to fulfill purpose. Right? And that's why we have created this assessment, right? And everyone who takes the assessment, right, when you take the assessment, you will know exactly where you are, and you will know, what you need to do to get to where you want to be. Right? And with your result, when you get your result from the assessment, I wouldn't just leave you and say, oh, now you know you're a fuzzy parent. Right? I also want to be able to give a few people the opportunity of a conversation, because of course I cannot give everybody, I cannot give 200 people who register for this training opportunity of a conversation. So I want to be able to give a few people an opportunity of a conversation to sit down with me, right, and have an action plan. So let's say, for instance, you find out that you are a fuzzy parent or a liberal parent or a dreaded parent. I want to offer a few people an opportunity of a conversation to sit down with me to map out a 6 months plan on how to go from being a fuzzy parent, a liberal parent, or dreaded parent, no matter where you find yourself, to becoming a power parent. Right? I want to offer some people, I will be taking out time, right, in my days, to be able to offer some people conversations and to help them sit down and map out an action plan to help you move from wherever you find yourself in this 4 category of parents to becoming the power parent that you need to be, to raise a child who will fulfill purpose, to raise your ideal child. Right? So if you have followed this conversation thus far, and you know that you really desire to raise a responsible child, you want to raise a child who is well behaved, a child who is disciplined, a child who is wholesome, a child who is trauma free, who will fulfill God's purpose for their life, and you want to take this assessment and you want to have that conversation with me, please send us a message, right? So the number is, Peggy, help me put the number in the chat box. So send us a message. You can send me a direct message. You can send me a direct message if you're following me on any social media handle. If you already have my contact, if you're on the WhatsApp group, if you registered for this program and you're on the WhatsApp group, you can send me a WhatsApp group, or you can send a message to the Academy's WhatsApp group, which is the Academy's WhatsApp number, which is 070, right, 070-176 070-176-87616. Yes, 070-176-87616. Right? So that's the Academy's, our Parenting Academy's WhatsApp contact. Right? You want to send a message there, and the earlier you do that, the better, because remember, I cannot give over 200 and something people registered for this conversation. I cannot give everybody, the opportunity of a conversation. It will be on first come first serve basis. First of all, what you need to do is take the assessment. If you want the assessment, send a message, and then we'll send you the assessment. You take the assessment, and then we'll sit with you to map out a plan to help you, build an actionable plan to becoming the kind of parent that you want to become, so that you can raise the kind of child who will fulfill purpose. Right? At the end of the day, we need to become conscious. We need to walk our own journey of healing. We need to improve ourselves, because for some of these parents, right, the indication, so for a dreaded parent, a lot is going on with them in terms of their healing, in terms of their own conditioning from their own parenting. Right? So there is work to be done. Right? So we need to do the work that is necessary. We need to upskill ourselves so that we can raise the kind of children that we want to raise. We don't want at the end of the day to be the reasons why our children did not fulfill purpose. We don't want to be at the end of the day be the reasons why our children made destiny errors. We don't want to be at the end of the day the reasons, maybe due to our laziness, due to our lackadaisical nature, our children will not become all God has created them to become. We need to do the work so that we can show up for our children in an empowering way, in a way that serves them and in a way that launches them into all God has created them to become. And that is when you can say, yes, I have been successful with my parenting, right? So if you have any question, please ask me, right? If you have any question, please ask me. What we do with the Parenting Academy is to help you become the best parent that you can become for the child in front of you. Do we have any questions? Thank you, Memunat, for all the commentaries. I really, really appreciate. And I hope this has been an amazing session. I hope we learned something. If you learned something, please share what you learned. On social media, use the hashtag PSA conversation. Hashtag PSA conversation. You can tag me if you're following me on social media so that I can repost, right? And with this, we have come to the end of Parent Summit Africa conversation. Would have more conversations. I'm bringing amazing people to keep sharing their stories. In fact, I have a plan to bring an amazing coach all the way from America to come and share his story. He's a father. He has raised amazing kids. All his kids are adults, married, right? Want him to come and share his stories. He did an amazing job with his kids. So we'll be having these conversations regularly every now and again. And I hope that we keep staying tuned in. And guys, please do ask for that assessment so that you can start your journey to becoming a power parent. If you don't have a question, then we have come to the end of Parent Summit Africa conversation. I'll give us a few minutes to ask questions. Anybody has a question? Okay, if we do not have a question, then we call it a day. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for being part of this journey. Please share our YouTube to your family, your friends, those who haven't been following everything we've been doing here. Kindly share our YouTube. Okay, how do I regulate? Someone says, how do I regulate myself in order to regulate my kids? So regulating yourself is a whole process, right? When it comes to children, your children will be children and they would trigger you, right? But your level, to the extent to which you are triggered, right, is dependent on a lot of things. So there are things I call internal triggers, there are things I call external triggers. Your external triggers are things like, oh, you're tired, you're sleepy, you're hungry, you have had a long day at work. And those ones, if you're able to understand, I've had a long day at work, you can be able to manage yourself, right? You can be able to make your child, depending on the age of the child, make the child understand. Depending on the support that is available to you, help get somebody to hold your child so that you can get some rest, get some sleep, have some food so that you can be well enough to come and attend to the child. But when it comes to your internal triggers are linked to your own childhood experiences. And those are things that you need to work on. And when it comes to internal triggers, it takes a lot of learning, a lot of self-awareness, and a lot of reflection, right? So for instance, if a crying child triggers you, right? For instance, whenever your child is crying, it's like, what's happening? Why can't this child shut up? There is a high chance that you were somebody who experienced a lot of beating, a lot of shouting when you cried. So or you're somebody who is triggered by who has sensory triggers, so maybe noise triggers you, right? So if you're somebody who was beaten so much as a child, and your child's crying now triggers you, then there is a healing work that you need to do. First, awareness, then reflection, then you plan. You realize that, okay, my child's cry triggers me. When my child is crying, what do I do? Right? What do? I either walk away, I come back to them when I'm calm enough to understand the underlying cause of their problem, and then address the underlying cause of their problem. Because there's another thing that we have, where we think that when children are crying, they just want to frustrate us, right? We need to understand that a child's cry is their way of saying, I need you, I need something, I'm frustrated, I don't know what is going on. There is always a reason why a child is crying. No child cries because they want to cry, right? And if you're able to understand why the child is crying and address why that child is crying, then you can solve that problem. And sometimes a child's crying is a way of also telling you that I don't know how to regulate myself. I don't know what to do when I feel sad. I don't know what to do when I feel hurt. I don't know what to do when I feel angry, right? So that also calls for action, for you to start small by small to teach your child how to regulate their emotions. So this is where you're teaching your child, if you're angry, take a deep breath. So there's something that happens today. My son wanted to use his tab, right? His tablet, and it wasn't time for him to use the tablet. So I told him that it wasn't time. And of course, because they only get to use tablets on weekends, right? And because he was looking forward to it all week and it was time for him to use it, he was very, very frustrated when I kept on telling him it's not yet time. So he'll come and say, is it 1 o'clock yet? And I'm like, no, it's not yet 1 o'clock. So at a point he got frustrated and he was crying. And I brought him close. And of course, what I did not do was to go and give him the tab. If I did that, that means I'm a liberal parent. I'm not maintaining my boundaries, right? So I had a conversation with him and I told him, how do you feel? And he said he feels sad. He really wants to use his tab. He's looking forward to it. He's bored and all of that. And I said, when you feel sad, what can we do? And he said, think happy thoughts, because we have already, talked about it. When you're sad, think happy thought. Think about something that happened recently that made you happy, right? And I asked him, okay, what is the happy thought that you have? And he said, no, I don't have any happy thoughts, right? So I had to remind him, okay, recently we went to a cinema and you watched a movie, Sonic 2, one of your favorite cartoons. Were you happy that day? And he said yes, he was happy. And I'm like, think about that experience. How was the cinema? How so much fun that you had? How was the movie? I remember you coming out and telling me the movie was so awesome. You understand? So as we talked about that, his mood changed and he became more lighter, right? And I reassured him that once it was 1 o'clock, I was going to give him his tablet. And that is what I did. So what I did there is to keep on equipping him on how to handle his emotions. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to not be happy or excited with the boundaries that, for your child not to be happy and or excited about the boundaries that you provide as a parent. It's okay. Allow them express their emotions, but then equip them on how to regulate themselves as they move forward. But for you to be able to do all of this, you need to know how to hold your own self, right? You need to know how to hold your own self. And there are a lot of practices that can help you. Reflection helps, organization helps, self-care helps, right? Self-care helps, right? So one of the things, because why we lose regulation, one of the reasons why we lose regulation is because most times we are functioning primarily with our survival brain, and we have overstimulated nervous system. So our journey of healing has a lot to do with retraining our nervous system to respond to things in a way that is not an emergency. So if your child is crying, you don't have to attend to it like an emergency, right? So one of the practices some of the practices that can help you, bring your nervous system to calm again is, exercise, movement, reflection, journaling, meditation, being in nature. Being in nature helps a lot, right? Any type of nature. Like, I've had this conversation with somebody who was abroad, and she was like, oh, we don't have so much of nature, we don't have so much of sand and water and all of that. I say snow is nature. So no matter what nature is, in your own reality, just be in nature. Be in nature a lot. Be in tune and in touch with nature. It has a way of healing your nervous system. Meditation helps, reflection helps. And as you journey with your children, whenever you flip the lead, whenever you miss it, it's important that you think about everything that has happened and ask yourself the question, what did I do that did not go well? How do I make this better? How do I respond better in the future, right? So that way, when that thing happens again, you will be more equipped to address it. The problem with us is that we don't reflect enough, so we keep on repeating the same cycle. So your child did something, they cried, and you beat them. Oh, shut up, stop making noise, keep quiet. And then you regret it. Oh. The child finished crying, everything, all of that, and that you regretted it. But you did not sit down and say, what led us to this place? How did we come here? Why did I beat this child? Okay, you now know the answer. So how do I make sure that this doesn't repeat itself again? If you're able to reflect, you'll be able to get answers. All the answers you need is inside of you. You just need people to help you bring it out, people to help you see it, right? And if you're able to do that, reflect, recycle, help your child recycle their thoughts, then you'll be able to you see yourself, you look back maybe after a year or two and realize that some of the things that used to make you shout no longer makes you shout, right? But if you find yourself that you're repeating the same thing over and over and over and over again, then you're not reflecting enough, you're not planning enough, right? So I hope I've been able to answer your question. I know I delved into a lot of things from there, but I hope I've been able to answer your question. So guys, I think that we have come to the end of this conversation. So guys, ask for the assessment. Everybody needs to take that assessment. It will change your life. It will change the trajectory of your parenting, right? And if you're able to get the opportunity to have that sit down, the action plan consultation with me, then you'll be able to have your plan in front of you, right? You have your plan, a plan that you can replicate over and over and over and over again. Know what you're working on, know how to do it, know how to move from wherever you are right now to becoming a power parent who has the right knowledge of their child and who has the right capacity to influence their child to become all that God has called them to be. That's the goal for all of us. And I hope that all of us become, those kind of parents. Thank you so much for joining and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for being part of Parent Summit Africa conversation. And once again, we're super grateful to the people of the Bunker Abuja for making this happen. If you ever find yourself in the city of Abuja or you are in the city of Abuja and you're looking for where to meet your clients, maybe you don't have an office, you have not rented an office, right? But you have clients whom you need to meet, or even you're a stay-at-home mom and when the kids go to school, you need to get some work in, then the Bunker is the place for you. Beautiful spaces, affordable prices, right? Beautiful spaces, affordable prices, creative spaces that get you thinking productively, right? So if you're in Abuja, they are in Wuse too. You can come, do your work, and tell them you are from me. Tell them you are from Dr. Vivian Okoye, and they'll give you a special treatment, right? Once again, thank you everybody for joining. Please do share my YouTube and please do subscribe. I told you more conversations are coming. If you're following us on YouTube, subscribe, put on the notification so that anytime we're sharing, you'll be notified. Thank you. Okay, someone said one can be liberal and dreaded. Is it possible? Well, I think that when you take the assessment, you'll be able to know, but you can't be two at a time. You can't be two. If you're liberal, you can't be dreaded. Liberal is too playful, too, without boundaries. Dreaded is like, the the parents that their children dread, right? So Ike, I don't think you can't be liberal and dreaded at the same time, right? But you might have qualities from both sides, but you'll be primarily one. You'll be primarily one. And when you take the assessment, you'll be able to know where you fall in the category. All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Ngozi. Thank you, Peggy. Thank you, Ayanate. Thank you, Ike. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And thank you, Memonat. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And God bless you. Bye-bye.